Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Copeland, here to talk to you about coming to terms, how to effectively use contracts and policies. I'm an attorney who's been working for many years trying to help family childcare providers be more successful as a business. I do that through answering questions. So if you have questions after listening to this, I'm happy to try to answer them. You can ask me questions about contracts and policies or other aspects of the business side of family childcare, record keeping, marketing, legal and insurance, money management, retirement questions. Here's my phone number. Here is my email address. I don't charge anything for answering questions, so I'm happy to do so. Your question might be answered on my website, tomcopelandblog.com. where I posted hundreds of articles on all aspects of the business side of family childcare, including a big section on articles dealing with contracts and policies. I'm also on Facebook. Every time I post an article on my website, it will appear on my Facebook page, and you can ask me questions on Facebook. I've written a book, Family Childcare, Contracts and Policies. I'm not providing you with individual, legal, tax, or professional advice. Now, one of the main benefits, I think, of being a family childcare provider is you are the boss. You can essentially run your business as you want, with a few limitations we'll talk about in a second. But you want to run a highly structured program, every minute of every day is planned out, that's great. You want to have a totally unstructured program called Chaos Childcare? Don't ask me what I'm doing tomorrow. I don't know what I'm doing this afternoon. That's okay. You want to have a program with a lot of religious education? Wonderful. You want to have a program with anti-religious education? You're the witch provider? You can do that. Maybe you never want to care for infants or only want to care for infants. Fine. You want to have 8 field trips a month, dramatic play every day. Friday is singing day. We only sing on Fridays. Vegetarian food. Monday is green day. You got to wear something that's green. You can do whatever you want. Now, here are the limitations, okay? You got to follow Massachusetts licensing rules and regulations. That's clear. If you're caring for kids on the subsidy program, you got to follow their rules. You're on the food program, you got to follow the food program rules. Okay, that makes sense. Lastly, you cannot discriminate against children or parents based on religion, race, sex, age. Now, age discrimination really has to do with somebody who's age 40 or older. So that really doesn't come into play. Color, national origin, parental status, you can't say you won't care for families who are married or not married. Disability, sexual orientation. So let me give you an example about religion. One day a provider calls me up and says, a parent wants to enroll in my program, and she tells me she's a Jehovah's Witness. And she says that she doesn't believe in birthday parties or celebrations of any kind. And the provider asked me, well, what can I do? I said, you can't discriminate against this parent because of her religion. But that doesn't mean you have to change anything that you're doing. So you can tell the parent, I have birthday parties all the time, and I have all kinds of other celebrations. You're welcome to come to my program. If you want me to tell you in advance when I'm celebrating birthdays and other celebrations, I'll let you know, and you can decide whether or not you want to bring your child to my program. But you don't have to do anything differently. And from where I sit, family childcare is just one party after another. It's Big Bird's birthday, it's Mother's Day, it's Labor Day, everybody's having a birthday. So what it looks like to me is you're just party. That's family childcare. You can continue to do that. You have a lot of religious activities. You can tell prospective parents, these are the kind of religious activities I have. You're welcome to come. All right? So these are really the only limitations. Other than this, you can do whatever you want. So for purposes of this class now, let's assume you're following all these rules. Okay, fine. And now you're on your own. You set up your program. You move forward. Now, many parents who might come to your program probably don't have much, if any, experience with childcare. This is probably the last generation of parents who were not in childcare as children. So their parents didn't tell them much about childcare. They're coming to you with little or no personal experience with childcare. And as a result, they may have some difficulty understanding your business. If I'm a first-time parent and I go into a childcare center, I've never been in a childcare center before, I look around, what do I see? I see kids of about the same age in a room with an adult. It looks like a school for small children. And I've been in school, everybody's been in school, so I could pretty quickly understand a childcare center and what's going on. But if I come to a family childcare home, if I come to your home and I take one step inside the front door, and I've never been in a family childcare home before, what's going on here? What is your business? What do I do? Do I take off my shoes? Do I sit in that chair? It's your private home, so I'm not going to just wander around like I might in a childcare center. Your program doesn't look like a business because it's your home. Okay, you got a lot of toys around, but maybe you're just a family with a lot of kids. So where's the cashier? Where's the checkout counter? Where's the sign that tells me what's going on and what the rules are? Because I don't know what family childcare is about. And as a result, some parents are a little nervous, a little scared maybe, coming into family childcare. So it's on you to explain what your business is about. And that's a little harder for you, I think, than it is for childcare centers. Now, you've enrolled a family. You can have different rules for different parents. Your contract and policies can be different from one parent to the next. It's your business. The rules don't always have to be the same. Again, we're not talking about illegal discrimination. You're not doing that. So, parent wants to enroll in your program, and you say, well, where do you work? And they say, Walmart. Can you say to the parent, I hate Walmart, you got to pay me $30 more per week? Can you do that? Yes. It's not race, sex, religion. It's you hate Walmart. It's not a protected class. If the parent says, well, I work at Costco, can you say, oh, I love Costco, I'll give you a $30 discount? Yes, you can. Now, I do not recommend that you do that. I don't think it makes sense to treat parents differently based on where they work. You could, but parents aren't going to be happy with that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even though I do hate Walmart. Okay? So, I wouldn't do that. But, parent, you got an opening, parent wants to come. Can you charge the parent more just because you want to raise your rates, but only raise your rates to new families? Can you do that? Everybody else is paying, I don't know, $180 a week, and the new parent is paying $200 a week. Can you do that? Yes. Yes. Your pickup time is, let's say, 6. You got an opening. New parent wants to come in. Can you say, parent, you got to pick up at 5? Yes. What might be a reasonable reason why you would want them to pick up at 5? Well, you might say, I'm getting tired at the end of the day. I don't want to care for as many children between 5 and 6. And so any new parents who come in have to pick up at 5. Your rate is the same as people picking up at 6, but you got to pick up at 5. Now, anytime you're going to have a different rule for different parents, you should assume that everybody's going to know about it. Don't try to say to a parent, okay, parent, I'm giving you a deal, or here's your contract, here's your policies, don't tell anybody else. No, that's not going to work. So parents are going to find out. So obviously, a parent shows up at 5 and notices everybody else is hanging around. They say, well, wait a minute. I have to pick up at 5 and they can pick up at 6? That's not fair. You're discriminating against me. Well, yes, you are discriminating against this parent. You are treating her differently. And I can understand why she might feel like it's not fair, but that's your rule. And it's a reasonable rule. So you can do that. Now, if you are going to treat parents differently, as I've said, I think you should have some good explanation for it. And obviously, age of the child, having different rules depending on the age of the child, different rates depending on the age of the child, well, that's obvious. That's easy to understand. Parent longevity, you've been with me a longer time, so the rule is not going to be as strict as the new rules I'm going to give to new families. That's reasonable. What about special circumstances? A parent comes to you one day and says, my husband's in the hospital. We're hurting financially. Can we not pay you for the next month? Well, it's your business. You can decide if you want to do that or not. Maybe you'll say, yes, okay, I understand, parent. You don't have to pay me for the next month. Fine. The next day, another parent comes to you and says, I just heard that this other parent's not paying you for a month. What's the deal? Why are you doing that? And you would say, that's confidential. You're not going to share with other parents why you're treating other parents differently because it's private, it's confidential. You're not going to share the fact that husband's in the hospital. So you say, well, it's confidential. They have special circumstances. The parent might say, well, what are special circumstances? And you would answer, well, or whatever I think they are. I'm just deciding on my own whether or not I'm going to treat parents differently. So let's say a week later, that parent comes back to you and says, my husband's in the hospital. We're hurting financially. Can we not pay you for the next month? The same situation as the first parent. Must you offer the second parent the same deal and allow her not to pay? No. You can if you want, but you're not required to. You could say, parent, I'm sorry, but I can only deal with one special circumstance at a time. And so I've already given out that special circumstance, and that's all I can do. That's all I can do. All right? It's up to you. Now, it's up to you to set the rules. The parents are not going to call you up and give you a 10-page contract. So you have to set your own rules. You have to define your program. So providers will call me up and say, Tom, the parent's not treating me well. They're doing this, they're doing that. They're not following my rules. What can I do? They're not treating me like a business. Well, in my experience, usually that's because the provider's not acting like a business. So, provider, it's your rule. You got to tell the parent they got to follow your rule. We'll explain a little bit later how to do that, but it's on you. It's not on the parent. The parent's not going to call you up in the middle of the night and say, you know what, I've been reading over our contract, and I realize I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to do, and I'm calling to apologize. It's not going to happen. No child care agency will ever offer a class for parents entitled How to Pay Your Child Care Provider on Time. It's just not going to happen. It's all on you because it's your business. So let's talk about some rules associated with COVID. Vaccinations. You can require parents to get the COVID vaccine before they can bring children to your program. Parents are not required to get vaccinated. The government is not requiring vaccinations, but you can require it before they can come into your program because your job is protecting the health and safety of children. So declining care because of this is not illegal discrimination. If you think before COVID, children got sick. They got the flu. They maybe got the chicken pox or the mumps or something, all right? When they got sick, you could say you got to stay home. You got to stay home. You got the flu, you got a temperature, whatever, you got to stay home until you get the doctor's note, right? And so that was common back then. It's kind of the same situation now. An illness is not a protected class. So you can discriminate against parents who are not vaccinated. Now, there's going to come a time where children are going to have access to the vaccine. We're moving in that direction. When it becomes commonly available, and it's got to be reasonable here, you can then say to parents, your child must be vaccinated before they can come to my program. Now, again, parents might complain, well, wait a minute, I don't believe in the vaccine, or, you're discriminating against me, or I'm upset, you're breaking the law or something. No, no, no. If a parent is really upset, you can just say, you know what, this is my rule. This is my rule. If you think, parent, that I'm breaking the law, come and show me what the law is that says I'm in violation of it. You can always consult with your licensor about this, but you can certainly draw the line, if you want, concerning vaccinations. During COVID, you are free to set your own rules in your contract and your policies, and you can change them. If you're going to change your contract, it's got to be in writing and signed by the parent to be enforceable. So you're going to change your fees if you're closed or open concerning the COVID, or your hours or something. If it's in the contract, it's got to be in writing. Parents have got to sign it. You can scratch out a number and put in a new number and get the parent to sign that page, and you sign that page. That's a change. You can add a new paragraph. Here's my new COVID policy. If it's going to be part of the contract dealing with rates, then parent can sign it, you sign it, staple it to the contract. Or just simply print out a new contract with the changes and get parents to sign it. If it's a change in a policy, you're going to, something dealing with masks, then you don't need a parent signature. Policies aren't enforceable in court. They don't need a signature for you to enforce it. So here's a policy. All visitors to my program must wear hand sanitizers when first arriving, wear a mask, put shoe covers on their shoes, and wear gloves while in my program. I'll provide these supplies. Right? That's a policy. And you can just say, yep, parents, there's my policy right now. And it goes into effect today. Goes into effect tomorrow. No parent signature is necessary. You can always have parents sign policies if you want, but it's not required. Quarantine. Parent has traveled out of state. Parent has said, well, somebody in their household tested positive for COVID. They've just been in a large gathering. Nobody wore masks. This mask thing is changing, obviously, but can you require parents to quarantine if you're nervous about their situation? They just tested positive. Their mother-in-law who lives with them is now in the hospital with COVID. It's like, well, yikes. You're nervous about that. You can set your own rules about who can come to your program. And quarantining, everybody in your family, nobody can come until after a certain period of time is allowed. Now, if you are going to require parents to quarantine, what about whether they should pay you during that time. Now, here's where, again, you can set your own rules. You could say, well, you got to pay my full rate. You're in quarantine, you still got to pay me the full amount. Or, all right, I'll help you out. You only have to pay me half the rate. Or you don't have to pay me at all. But if your contract doesn't now say that they have to pay you while in quarantine, I think you need to make a change if you want to charge them, and now they need to sign off on it to be enforced. Liability waivers. Some providers are worried that if their child in their program gets COVID, the parent might sue them, and that could be a lot of money, and they're nervous about it. So some programs create a liability waiver such as this. Parent promises to hold harmless the ABC Child Care Program if their child contracts the COVID-19 while enrolled in our program. Pretty straightforward. The idea here is parent signs this. Let's say child gets sick, thousands and thousands of dollars of medical bills. Parent comes after you and says, I'm suing you for all these medical bills because my child got COVID in your program. And you say, well, wait a minute, you signed this thing saying hold harmless, meaning you can't hold me responsible, so you can't sue me. That's the idea. That's the idea of this liability waiver as protection. Well, in my opinion, I just don't think this will work. Traditionally, judges throw out liability waivers when we're dealing with parents and children. They don't want to allow parents to give up their right to sue in a situation where their child is sick. So I don't think it's going to be enforceable. Now, your program clearly has a duty to keep everybody safe. So here's how you protect yourself. Follow the best practices indicated by the Centers for Disease Control and the Massachusetts State Health Department. If you're following these guidelines, I don't think the parent can sue you. I don't think they can show that you were negligent. People get sick. You cannot prevent somebody from getting sick, and you're following everything that the government tells you you're supposed to do. There's nothing more you're really required to do, so how can you be held liable? Lastly, I just don't think it's going to be possible for a parent to prove that their child got COVID in your program. It's, yikes, that'd be very, very difficult. So I just don't like liability waivers. This is what you need to do to protect yourself. All right, so now let's talk more generally about contracts and policies. Just because a parent may want to enroll in your program doesn't mean you have to accept them. And it should be clear when you're talking to parents, prospective parents, that they understand that. Parent, we both need to agree that this is the best place for your child before I'm going to enroll your child. All right? So, parent talking on the phone, parent comes over for an interview. You need to make your own decision about whether this is a good fit and whether you want to accept the family. It's reasonable to ask the parent for a reference. I need to know the name of your previous caregiver. And if the parent says why, you would say, well, I think it's very helpful to me to learn more about your child through the eyes of this previous caregiver who could tell me a lot so I can respond more quickly to your child's needs. I find it very helpful. And the parent says, well, I'm not so crazy about that. I don't know about that. Well, if the parent's not willing to give you that name, I don't think you want to care for the child because something's going on that they don't want you to know about. Now, if you feel like this is not going to work out, you can say no. You can say no for no reason. It's just like you wake up in the morning and say, no, I didn't think so. That interview, I don't know what it was. I just don't think so. Or any reason. I didn't like the mother's attitude, right? Again, we're not talking about illegal discrimination. That's not what's going on. But you just feel like, nah, I don't think so. I don't want to do it. Now, you could offer a trial period of a week, 2 weeks. A trial period means that at the end of the day, either you or the parent could decide, no, this is not working out, and just end it. That's it. It's a day-to-day agreement, essentially. If you decide you don't want to care for this family, how do you communicate to the parent that you're not going to want to enroll their child? In my opinion, now let me just say this here. From now on, whatever I'm saying, you don't have to agree to, right? Because it's your business and you can run your business however you want. You don't have to follow the same rules or have the same policies, certainly, as the provider next door. That also means you don't have to agree with me. If you don't like what I'm saying, if you say, Tom, that's not going to work for me, I'm not comfortable doing this, you don't have to. You don't have to agree with me. It's your business. So, in my opinion, I think the best way to say no to a parent is to say, I don't think this is the best place for your child at this time. And if the parent says, why not? You would say, I don't think this is the best place for your child at this time. And if the parent says, why not? This seems like a great program. You would say, I don't think this is the best place for your child at this time. You don't want to give reasons. You don't want to elaborate. You never want to put your reasons in writing. Why? What are you going to say that the parent will agree to? The parent's thinking, I got a wonderful child. Who wouldn't want to care for my child? Everybody wants to care for my child. And now you're saying no, and you're expecting them to agree with you? What are you going to say? Your child is too ugly. I don't like the way you walk. I don't like your car. I don't like your husband. I don't like your haircut. I don't like the child's attitude. I don't like your voice. What are you going to say that they will think, oh, okay, I understand. Of course you wouldn't want to care for my child. No, no. They're probably going to take anything you say as an insult. You're insulting me. I don't agree with that. You're wrong. Or they might think that what you're telling them is illegal discrimination. You were talking a lot about religion and where people went to church, and the parent might start thinking, well, I go to a different church than you, and maybe that's why you're saying no to me. Now, you're not intending that, but the more you talk to the parent, the more they might think that somehow your reason is illegal. So, stay away from that. Now, this can be hard for many providers. If you feel like you got to say something more, I would say something along these lines. Parent, I make most of my decisions based on a feeling, my feeling of how things are going to work out and what's in the best interest of children and my program. And I have a feeling that I'm not the best caregiver for your child. You never want to say anything critical of the child or the parent. So parent, no, it's not anything you're saying or doing. It's not anything about your child. It's me. I have a feeling that I would not be the best caregiver for your child. And I make my decisions mostly on the basis of a feeling I have. And they can't argue with your feeling. You just say, well, I can't explain it anything more than that. I just have this feeling. And that's how I'm going to make my decision. Now, when I'm talking to providers in a room, I'll say, well, that's what I recommend. How do you say no to a parent? And usually one provider will say, well, I'll tell the parent that last week I received a call from another parent and I'm waiting to hear back from them. And if I hear back from them, I'm sorry, the slot will be filled. So I'm waiting from this other family. And then I'll ask that provider, well, is there another parent who called you last week? And usually they'll say no. In other words, they're lying to the parent. by telling her that there's somebody else on the line there. So, no, I don't like that. That's not a good idea. You're lying to the parent. That's unprofessional. And it's possible, after you say no to this family, that they'll see, looking up in referral or hear from somebody else, that you still have an opening. And then they'll think, oh, this provider lied to me. So, and that's no good. They'll complain to others, say this provider treated me badly, this provider lied to me. They could make a complaint to licensing. So, no, I don't think anything good can come of that. This is the best way I would suggest you deal with it. So now let's talk about what a contract really is. It's a legally enforceable agreement between two parties, you and the parent. And there are only two things in a contract that are legally enforceable: the hours of your operation and money. The hours of your operation. When are you open? Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., whatever. Are you open on holidays? Are you taking vacations? Are you open on sick days? When are you open? Money. When do parents pay you? How much do they pay you? Is there a registration fee, a late pickup fee, an early drop-off fee, a bounce check fee, a field trip fee, a supply fee? You're giving me a headache fee. Anything to do with money and time belongs in your contract and can be enforced in court. So, you're open, let's say, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Sunday, you call up the parent and say, "Nah, I don't feel like it this week. Don't bring your child. But you're still going to pay me for this week." No, no. The parent could go to court and say, "Provider can't charge me for this. She won't even provide the care." The parent's going to win. If the parent does bring the child during a normal week and refuses to pay you, well, you can go to court and force the parent to pay you. Right? So, these are the basic elements of a contract. The names. Your name, parent's name, child's name. Hours of operation, terms of payment. Termination procedure. How will the contract end? And we'll talk about that later. Signature. If there are two parents around, you want signatures of both parents. Why? Both parents sign the contract. 6 months later, they get divorced. The father's paying the mother child support. A year later, the father stops paying child support, and the mother comes to you and says, "I don't have any money. The father's not paying me. I can't afford to pay you anymore." You can still sue the father because his name was still on the contract. You want a start date to your contract, but not an ending date. This contract is from February 1st through December 31st. No. This contract starts February 1st, period. And then either you or the parent will eventually end the contract. Why is this important? Two parents sign the contract. Contract says it's going to end December 31st. The parents are divorced. They get divorced. The mother, you give the mother the contract to sign in December, say, "Hey, we need to sign a new contract here. It's about to expire." But the mother takes it home, forgets about it, you forget about it. Now it's January. The contract has expired. The father's name is no longer on a contract. You can't enforce the contract against the father anymore, even if the mother signs the new one. So, no, there's no benefit of having an ending date. If you want to renew your contract on a regular basis, that's fine. Anytime you want, you can say, "Parent, let's go over the contract again. I've not made any changes, but let's just re-sign it." Okay? Or I've made some changes and now I need you to sign the new contract. Okay? But don't arbitrarily have an ending date. Now, contract, money and time. I'm not about to tell you what to charge. what your fees should be, what your rate should be, that's all up to you. That's your business. I'm not about to tell you what your hours should be. It's whatever you want. I can remember one provider when I used to work at a child care resource and referral agency, we got a call from a parent. And the parent said, I'm not getting any calls anymore from prospective parents. And we said, okay, let's look you up here. Well, it says you're closed at 3 p.m. Is that true? And she said, yes. She said, I care for teachers, and they're all picking up by 3. And we said, well, that's probably why you're not getting very many calls, because most parents want childcare after 3. And she said, well, no, I think parents should be home with their kids by 3. And we said, well, okay, if that's what you want to do, but I think you're limiting yourself in terms of who's going to want to come to your program. So that's all up to you, what your hours are, right? However, here are 2 rules that I would strongly recommend you put in your contract. Over the years, I continue to get calls, emails from providers who say, a parent left owing me money. A very common, unfortunate problem. So, here's the solution. Adopt these 2 rules. Client parent will pay at least 1 week in advance. Client parent will pay in advance for the last 2 weeks of care. So let's look at this. Pay 1 week in advance. In my opinion, you should never provide care unless it's already been paid for. At least a week in advance. Some providers require a month in advance. Fine, it's whatever you want. But I'm saying at least a week in advance. Why? Well, you have expenses right away. Monday morning, you're serving breakfast, food, supplies throughout the week. You don't want to wait till the end of the week to get reimbursed for these things. Parents might be paying you on Monday for that week. They might be paying you on Friday for the previous week. It doesn't matter what day of the week they're paying you. I'm just saying by Monday morning of that week, you need to be paid. Not Monday afternoon, Monday morning. So you're never providing care until you've already been paid at least a week in advance. Now, let's just say, I don't know, the parent is paying you $200 a week. Make it the math easy. And they're paying you on Friday for the week that just ended. And I'm saying, no, that's not good practice. So what are you going to do? If you want, you could change this and say to the parent, give them some notice. So parent, 2 months from now, on the 1st of that month, the first Friday, don't change the day that a parent is already paying you. That would create more problems. So the first Friday of the month, 2 months from now, parent, you're normally going to pay me $200. Great. But now, for that week, and that week only, I want an extra $200. So I want $400 2 months from now. And then following that, you're going to continue to pay me Friday, 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 and it's going to be back to $200. So it's just the 1 week I want $400. And if the parent pays it, now when they pay you on Friday after that, they're really paying you for the next week because you've already been paid for the previous week. So that's a solution. Now, if the parent says, oh man, I can't afford the $400, even though you're giving me 2 months notice. So then you would say, okay, how much extra can you afford to pay me? $20, $15, $10, $5? We're talking now about private pay parents, not subsidized parents. So for a private pay parent, there's no one that couldn't afford, I think, $5 extra per week until you eventually get the $200. So this is a reasonable request. It's a reasonable rule. Parents can afford it. It's just a matter of setting up a plan, a payment plan that works, that's affordable, and that you enforce. Rule number 2, parent pay last 2 weeks in advance. When I ask providers face-to-face, what do you have in your contract regarding parents giving you a notice? Overwhelmingly, contracts in family childcare say parent must give at least a 2-week notice. That's pretty typical. It could be longer. I've seen it a month, but pretty typical. Parents must give a 2-week notice. So I'm saying, all right, but you got to pay me for that 2 weeks in advance. Because the common problem is the parent just says, I'm out of here. And the provider says, well, you owe me for the last 2 weeks. And the parent says, I'm not coming because you're a bad provider or whatever. And they're gone. And they're not paying you for the last 2 weeks. And now you're forced to try to track them down and go to court. And it's a hassle. So let's avoid all that. And the only clear, consistent, foolproof way of avoiding all that is to get the money in advance. So, using my example, $200 a week. Parent, I want $400 a week now for your last 2 weeks. You could do this just for new families. You could do this for families on their anniversary day. You can do it for all families in September, for all families in January, whatever you want. Parent, I need $400 now for the last 2 weeks. Oh, I can't afford that. Okay, how much extra can you afford to pay me? $40 a week, $30 a week, $20 a week, $10 a week, something. All private pay parents could afford to pay you something. When you get the 1 week in advance and you get the last 2 weeks in advance, now I think you're in a stronger position, less stress. I think it'd be easier now to enforce your other rules, easier for parents to comply with your rules because they're not going to walk out. Oh, you upset me, I'm leaving. Well, wait a minute. I've paid $400 for the last 2 weeks. Am I just going to walk out here? Not so fast. I just don't think the parent is going to be as eager to walk out. And I think that makes life a little easier for you to enforce all your other rules, not having to worry so much about a parent walking out. Now, let's say the parent has paid you for the last 2 weeks. Now, here's an example. Provider calls me up and said, I gave the parent a 2-week notice. The parent is coming for the last 2 weeks. However, the parent is bad-mouthing me to the other families every day, and I find that intolerable. What can I do? I said, well, has the parent paid you for those last 2 weeks? She said, yes. I said, how many more days does she have? 4. Okay, give her a refund for those 4 days and tell her not to come back. If you have the money and you want to end care, stop care, you must give a refund for the days you're not willing to provide the care. That's only fair. But that means you're in that power position of deciding whether you want to continue to provide care and keep the money or just say, I don't want to deal with you anymore, parent. Parent, you want to leave right away? You paid 2 weeks in advance. Okay, fine. I'm refunding your $400 because I don't want to see you again and I don't want to deal with you again. I mean, you can always do that. So these 2 rules are reasonable. You can set it up in a payment plan that's affordable. So it shouldn't be considered a financial barrier for any parent to eventually meet these 2 rules. Holding fees. Parent wants to come into your program 4, 5, 6 months from now. You promise to hold a spot till then. Okay, fine. In my opinion, remember, you don't have to agree with me, but in my opinion, you should charge a fee for your promise because your promise is valuable. If you're promising, that means you're going to agree not to accept other families to fill that slot, and that's worth something. Your fee could be whatever you want. And I've seen fees all over the place. $100, 1 week of care, 2 weeks of care, 25% of my normal rate, half my normal rate, my full rate. It's all over the place. Don't use the word deposit in this context. Parent, shall pay a non-refundable deposit of, I don't know, $300. And then the provider calls me up and says, the parent has decided not to come to my program, but she wants the $300 back. And it says non-refundable deposit. Well, the problem with the word deposit is that a parent could think that that means somehow they should be able to get their money back because it's just a deposit. So let's just avoid any confusion and call it a non-refundable holding fee. The fee is for me to hold it, and I'm holding it. So you have to pay me the fee, and you're not going to get it back. Now, if a parent says, wow, your holding fee, $300, whatever, that's kind of tough, that's going to be hard for me, what are you going to do? Well, you could say, parent, all right, we're talking 4 months from now. I got your phone number. I'm going to continue to try to fill that spot. And if I cannot fill this spot over the next 4 months, I will agree to provide care for your child. And so I'll promise that. And you won't have to pay me anything because I wasn't able to fill it, so I haven't lost any money. And that's fair. And that might work to get this family. Then you say, parent, if I find somebody else who wants to fill the slot before 4 months, I'll give you a call. And then you say, okay, parent, it's now 3 months later. Remember me. I got a family who wants to start now in 3 months. I'm willing to hold it for you now for this extra month, but you still now must pay me a holding fee. But it's not going to be $300. It's going to be much less than that because the holding period is much shorter. And that's fair. So you're giving that parent an opportunity to still come to your program. It's reasonable. Lastly, in my opinion, I would not apply any holding fee to the care once care begins. Don't apply it to the first week or 2 weeks or the last 2 weeks. No. Your holding fee is to pay me to hold the spot. And I'm potentially giving up money to other families who might want to come during that period. If you allow them to use that money for care once care begins, then you did not get paid to hold the spot. And again, your promise was worth something. Even if no parent was able to enroll before then, you didn't get any calls from anybody, still, that was your promise. It's worth something. So, that's how I would look at this. Policies. Policies are everything else that's not in a contract, meaning that's not dealing with time or money. Policies are all your rules that spell out how you're going to provide care. They're not enforceable in court. So, your policies say parents must bring an extra change of clothes every day. But one parent doesn't. Can you say to the parent, I'm going to sue you for not bringing the change of clothes today? No. Your contract says you provide 1 field trip a month. And at the end of 1 month, a parent comes to you and says, we didn't get a field trip this last month. I'm taking you to court to sue you for that lost field trip. No, you can't do it. If you're unhappy or the parent is unhappy with how the policies are being worked out, you try to talk to each other, you try to figure it out. But in the end, if it's driving you crazy or if it's driving the parent crazy and you can't work it out, you can terminate the parent can leave. That's how you deal with unresolvable policy disputes. Your policies can be simple, they can be very extensive. It's up to you. I've seen policies that are 50 pages. You can look at other providers' policies, you can adapt them, but just because another provider has a certain policy doesn't mean you need to copy it or you need to follow the same policy. It's your business. Make sure your policies work for you and they're ones that you like. Now, most policies will cover these topic areas: provider information about yourself, your background, your credentials, your family, your pets, whatever. Client responsibilities, description of your program, your daily activities, what you do, curriculum, illness, health, safety policies, policies for transporting children. I'm going to come back to in a second. Now, other than what your state might require you to put in policies, you can put in whatever you want. Whatever you want. Everybody's got to wear a hat on Tuesday. Transportation policy. Here's where we need to be a little more serious about this stuff. Parent shows up without a car seat. Parent shows up smelling of alcohol. You smell it. You notice that they don't have the car seat. They drive off, hit a tree on their way home, child is injured. You face two risks here. First, you could lose your license. You could lose your license. You're a mandated reporter. A child was at risk by getting into a car without a car seat or with somebody who's been drinking. I don't know how Massachusetts would handle this, but I'm just telling you, it's a possibility. You could lose your license or get it suspended or just in serious trouble here. Secondly, the child hits the tree, car hits the tree, child is injured, parent sues you for money because they got a lot of medical bills. You'll probably owe the parent some money. Well, how does that work? The driver of the car is obviously primarily responsible, but because you're a mandated reporter and you saw a child at risk and you didn't do anything, you still are potentially in trouble and owe this parent some money. So, what are you going to do? You want to create a transportation policy. And the transportation policy will say something like this. If, in my opinion, it's not safe for you to transport the child, I'm going to require you to pick one of these options in my policy. That is, give me the names of 4 or 5 people I can call in an emergency. We're going to call a cab. We're going to call Uber. You're going to pay for it. Go home and get the car seat. Come back. And then you can take the child. Or some other option that you can come up with. If you refuse to follow one of these options, and you insist on taking the child, I'm calling 911. That should be what you do. It's that important. It's that important. Parent, if in my opinion, what does that mean? That means if I smell alcohol, if I smell marijuana, if you've told me you haven't slept in 3 days because you've worked 4 shifts in a row, if you're staggering on your feet, if you're slurring your words, if I just feel like, wait a minute, I'm not comfortable here with you taking this child at this point, parent, then I'm going to act. I'm going to enforce this rule. So don't tell me somebody spilled wine on your shirt. Don't tell me it's an oregano cigarette. I'm not going to listen to any excuse because it's my opinion. So, if you don't see that there's no car seat, if you don't smell alcohol, and they drive off and hit a tree, you're not responsible because you didn't know. All right? Parent shows up. You say, parent, I'm not too comfortable here. It smells like you've been drinking, so why don't you have a seat? Let's call somebody else on this list to pick up the kids. And the parent says, no, I'm fine. It was just one drink, or it was not a big deal, and I'm okay. I've been doing this before. This is not a problem. And you say, well, parent, our policy indicates that this is a problem, as we've agreed to. So please, let's call somebody else. No, I'm taking the child. You can't refuse the child to the parent. If you do, it's kidnapping, which is against the law. You can't lock the child in the basement. Do not do what one provider said to me was, she said, I have a baseball bat inside the front door that I pull out if a parent gets uppity with me. No, 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 of course not. That puts everybody at risk. So you just say, parent, please don't take the child. I'm taking the child. Parent, I'm going to call 911. And you pick up the phone right then and call 911. I think it's a good idea when parents enroll to take a picture of their license plate, so you always have that in case of an emergency like this. You can call, I mean, even the parent, parents on the road somewhere, and having the parent's license plate could help in some other safety emergencies. But in this case, you call 911, parent, smell of alcohol with a child, here's a license plate. If you do that, you've fulfilled your responsibility. You're not going to get in trouble with child protection. Parent tries to sue you, they're not going to win. So this is serious stuff. You want to create a policy, you want to get parents to sign it. You want both parents to sign it. If the parent says, no, this is too restrictive, don't tell me what to do once I leave your program, I don't like this, then I think you should say, well, if you're not willing to follow this and not willing to sign that you agree to this, I can't provide care because it's too risky to me. I'm going to have to terminate you now. Oh, a parent might say, we promise not to sue you. Well, no, that's not going to work. Your child's in the hospital with tens of thousands of dollars of medical bills, and you're not going to try to sue me. Your insurance company will. So that's not going to work, parent. So getting the name of 3 or 4 people. So they give you a list, and you look at it. Can you say, I don't want this person on the list to pick up because I used to be their girlfriend? No, yeah, you can take it off the list. You don't have to accept everybody that a parent wants to put on your list. That person's not reliable. I don't really want to be around that person. Sorry, you got to come up with another name beside that person. You can do that. Because of the differences, as I've explained, between a contract and a policy, in my opinion, they should be 2 separate documents. So the contract is time and money. The policies are everything else. And again, contract can only be changed with a parent's signature. The policies can be changed however you want, whenever you want. Now, some providers have parents sign their policies, and they have, some of them have every page on their policies, a parent initials or parent signs, which is fine. The primary purpose of a contract and policies is communication. We don't want to go to court. We don't want to sue parents. We don't want them suing you. So this is all about communication. Parent, contract, money, time, that's communication. Policies, here's how I do it. Here's what you need to do. Communication, right? So reinforcing the importance of both the contract and policies is, I think, helpful, useful. And with policies, even though there's no requirement that they sign them, you can certainly have them sign them if you want. If you put the policies and the contracts together into one longer document, it becomes your contract. And that means any change now needs to be in writing and signed by the parent. So any change in your policy has to be agreed to by the parent. And I think that's just more cumbersome. I just don't think it's helpful. And so that's why I suggest having 2 separate documents: contract, parent handbook, or policies. We've talked about this a little bit before. Negotiation. It's your contract. You created it. Now you can negotiate it. You can change it. Parent comes to you and says, oh, late pickup fee is difficult for me. Every Wednesday I have a late staff meeting, so I'm always going to be 20 minutes, half hour late, and I'm paying these late fees, and that's a pain in the neck. Can you just let me not pay you for late fees on Wednesday? What can you say? You can say, no, that's my rule. You got to pay me the late fees. I don't care what your problem is about why you can't get here on time. Or, parent, well, okay, let's not nickel and dime you on Wednesdays because you're always going to be late on Wednesday. Why don't we just, pick the average amount of time you've been late and how much you normally pay me on Wednesday, $3, $4, whatever it is. And now let's just raise your rate so you don't have to worry about this Wednesday problem. Or you could say, all right, I'll make an exception. On Wednesday, your late fee is not going to start until 20 minutes after the hour. The first 20 minutes you don't have to worry about because I know you're going to be late. All right, that's up to you. Parent says, I can't afford to pay. I'm just, I lost my job. I haven't got my job back. It's a tough time. What can you say? Well, parent, do you expect to get a job and be able to pay me in this short future here? Well, yeah, I think I can do it in a month or 2 months. Then you could say, well, all right, I'm going to still charge you, but we'll set up a repayment plan so that you can pay me back over a number of months once you get the job. Or you can say, all right, I understand, parent, so you don't have to pay me for the next 2 months until you do get a job. Or you can say, parent, I'm sorry, I just can't afford you not paying because I have bills too. So if you can't afford it, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to terminate. All of these are up to you. There's no right or wrong about how you respond to a parent, about how you want to change your contract if you want to change it. Collecting parent payments. This can be a time of stress. A lot of providers just don't like dealing with the hassle around money. So, parent says, oh, I forgot my checkbook. You could say, well, go home and get one. Come back, and there's a late payment fee. Go. Or you could say, well, give me a blank check. Don't sign it. Don't put my name on it. Don't date it. Blank. I'll keep it in a safe place. 2 months later, the father says, oh, I forgot the checkbook. I think the mother has it. You say, well, you pull out the blank check here. We got a check you can sign now. Increasingly, providers are using electronic bank transfer apps. And there are lots of them out there. Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, KidCare, Google Pay, on and on and on. And it's nice. It's like, well, you pick a day, time that the parent's going to pay, and the parent will pay on those dates because the money will be transferred. And that's a simple way to go, and I see more and more providers doing that. Enforcing your agreements. You're always responsible for enforcing them because the parent's not going to enforce it. And sometimes parents will push you. Oh, I'm going to try this. I'll see if I can get away with that, to see if you are going to enforce your contract or policies. It's always on you. And you can decide how you're going to handle this. You could decide not to enforce a rule. I've given you some previous examples of that. If you are not going to enforce a policy for everybody, then I'd take it out. I suggest reviewing your policies at least once a year and look at them from the point of view of, am I doing everything that my policies say I'm supposed to do? Because if you're not, you need to then say, well, I need to start doing this, or just get rid of it. Parent, I'm deleting policy number 38. Get rid of it. And the same thing with an individual parent, because your policies could be different from one parent to the next. So look at each policy. Are you going to continue to enforce it? Are you going to insist on it? If not, take it out. It's just a guideline. How do we enforce policies? How do we enforce our contract? There's got to be a consequence. There's got to be a consequence. Even during times of a pandemic, there's always going to be a consequence. To enforce your rule, the consequences, I think, come down to either money or termination. Parent, you're not following my rules. Because of that, now you got to pay me more money. Or, parent, you're not following my rules, and I'm going to have to terminate our contract. Let's use the example, a common problem. Parent is showing up late to pick up their child. Well, what's the consequence? Could be a late fee. And providers have late fees all over the place. You don't have to pay me my late pickup fee if you notify me by phone within an hour. Or pickup time is 6, but there's a 15-minute grace period, and after that it's 50 cents a minute. Or at 6:01, it's $1 a minute thereafter. Whatever you want. One provider said, my late pickup fee was $50 a half hour. And her complaint was the parent kept paying it. So what did I tell her to do? I told her to raise her rate. The $50 a half hour was not high enough to stop the behavior of this parent. Can you raise your late pickup fee to one parent but not the others? Yes, that's not illegal discrimination. It's not based on race, sex, religion. It's like, that was the third time this month you were late, and now instead of $1 a minute, it's $2 a minute. Everybody else is $1 a minute because they're not late. Other than late fees, you could have termination. All right? I don't want to deal with $1 here and $1 there. So look, you can be late picking up your kids twice in a month. I'll forgive that. But after that, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. You're terminated. I'll never forget in one class, a provider said, my contract says if you are ever late picking up your child, you are immediately terminated. And everybody in the room went, oh, wow. I said, has a parent ever been late? And she said, no. And I said, okay, I can understand that, but I don't recommend that. Boy, that is severe. I do not recommend that to anybody else. Now, another provider said to me, I had a late fee, I forget what it was, like $1 a minute, but she said it was stressful for everybody. I didn't like it. Parents felt like it was punishment or guilt, and it was just stressful, and I didn't like it. So she said, I changed. What I did was I said to parents, okay, your pickup time is still 6. But if you pick up between 6 and 6:30, there's an evening rate. You're not late because I am willing to continue to provide care until 6:30. So it's an evening rate. So you don't have to rush. We don't have to look at the clock. It's like this is the evening rate. But after 6:30, I'm not willing to do that, so it's a severe consequence. She said that eliminated the stress. That worked for everybody. What I think you might want to consider is this. What's more important to you? Let's again say your pickup time is 6. What is more important to you? To not work after 6, meaning your time is more important to you, or money, willing to work after 6 and earn a little bit more money? Which is more important to you? Time, your time, or more money? If you say your time is more important, that means you don't want to work after 6. And so your consequence should be high enough to stop the parent behavior. And in my experience, in most cases, when providers charge $1 a minute, a parent or two might pay once, $20, oh man, but they don't do it again. So it's rare that behavior continues when you have a relatively high consequence like $1 a minute. On the other hand, you might say, well, gee, if I charge $1 a minute, that's $30 for a half hour. That's a lot more than I was earning before 6 o'clock. But again, in my experience, parents don't often pay $1 a minute. So I don't think you're going to earn a lot of money at $1 a minute. Then what? Well, what if I lowered it? What if I lowered it to 50 cents? Would that make a difference? Maybe it would, and that's $15 for a half hour. That's still more money than you're earning before 6 o'clock. So if that's how you feel, then well, maybe I can still make some money here. Parent, I got a sale on late fee. It's half off. It's now only 50 cents a minute. Maybe that will work, and maybe you could earn a little extra money that way. It's up to you. Now, what's the worst thing that can happen? Providers will worry sometimes that as they're enforcing their contract, if they're enforcing their policies, they're afraid that parents might leave. So when I've been teaching this across the country for a long, long time, I've asked thousands of providers, how many of you have ever put your foot down, enforced your contract, enforced your policies, raised your rates? You did something. And because of what you did, a parent left your program. Because that's the worst thing that can happen. And lots of people's hands will go up. Then I'll say, okay, if your hand is up, now how many of you still wish those parents are with you now? And everybody's hand goes down except for one provider, and I think it was Salt Lake City. She left her hand up. She said, yeah, I made a mistake. I wish that parent was back with me. Okay, but out of thousands of providers, that's one who regretted her decision. So, you have your rules that you created for good reason. You think they're good reasons. You enforce them. If parents don't want to follow your rules, you can talk with them, you can work it out, you give them a second chance, give them a third chance. But in the end, if they're not going to follow your rule, I don't think you want them in your program. It's not good. It's not good. It's stressful. It's disrespectful. It's not helpful. It's not good. So time to move on. Tell a parent they got to go. In the vast majority of situations, when providers do enforce their rules, parents follow them. But if they're not going to follow them, I just don't think it's wise to worry about, well, what can I do to make sure the parent stays? No. Providers just don't regret it when they enforce their rules. So I would encourage you to do so. Now, I'm not telling you just to terminate parents willy-nilly, all right? So before you're going to say, parent, you can't come here, you need to clearly state the problem with the consequence. So, parent, you need to pay me on time, or I'm going to have to terminate. I cannot continue to do this with you, parent, if you're not going to pay me on time. You got to communicate the consequence. Because if you just say, parent, you didn't pay me on time this week. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry. Well, please remember to do it. Okay. Parent, you didn't pay me on time again. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Well, please do it. No, if the behavior's not changing. Why is it not changing? Because there's no consequence. Why, as the parent, would I not continue to pay you late if I can get away with it and nothing's going to happen to me? Because I like paying late. Because I can keep my money longer, because I just want you to remind me 6 times before I'm going to do something. That's just how I work. No. Parent, here's a written warning. Look, this has been happening too often. I've told you this has been a problem. The next time you pay me late, I'm going to have to terminate. You need to know. I don't want to do it, parent, but you're just not following the rule, and I'm not sure what else I can do but to tell you I won't continue. I'll terminate the next time. Happens again. Parent, here's your termination notice. It's not a surprise. We've already talked about it. You can't say, oh, I didn't realize that this was going to lead to termination. No, you did realize it because I told you about it and I put it in writing. Now, providers tell me that most of the problems that they encounter are with the parents, not the children. Children are great. I can work things out with the kids. It's the parents who drive me crazy. And providers end up in conflicts with parents. So here's a tool that you could use, if you want, to resolve most conflicts with parents. And I call it the 3 choices of life. Here's how it works. You get a coach, your spouse, a friend, another provider. The job of the coach is to get you to choose one of the three choices of life to resolve your conflict. So let's see how this might work. Let's pretend that I'm your coach. And you come to me and say, Tom, I got a problem with a parent, and you're my coach. Can you help me out? And I would say, sure. What's the problem? And you might say to me, Tom, I got this new parent who's just totally overprotective, and she's calling me 10 times a day. And it's driving me crazy. What can I do? And I would say to you, well, you got three choices. Your first choice is just be happy about this. Let it go. Let the parent call you 10 times a day. Relax about it and be happy. Can you just be happy with what's going on right now? Because if you can, we've solved your problem. If you can't and you say, Tom, no, I cannot be happy. I'm not happy. Then I'd say to you, okay, you got another choice. If you're not happy, what do you want to make yourself happy? What do you need from this parent? Now, your answer could be all over the place. Your answer might be, well, Tom, I can deal with 2 calls a day. 2 calls a day, okay, not 10, 2. All right, that's clear. You need to now go back to this parent and say, parent, I can no longer accept 10 calls a day. I can accept no more than 2 calls a day. If you start calling me more than twice a day, I'm going to have to end our agreement. So, are you willing to do that with a parent and follow through with that? Because if you are, that's the solution. If you're not, you might say to me, Tom, I don't know. I love this child. It's a problem with the parent, and boy, I'm just reluctant to take that step. Then I'd say to you, okay, you got one more choice. You got to quit. You got to stop doing childcare and do something else. Oh, no, Tom, no, I can't do that. Well, then you got to be happy. You got to let it go. No, I'm not happy. Well, what are you doing about it? You need to tell the parent what they need to do, and if they don't do it, you need to get rid of the parent. Oh, man, Tom, that's so harsh. Then you need to go out of business. There's no other choice. So, let me explain this a little bit more. Any of these 3 choices are acceptable. There's no right or wrong about these. If we were all in a room together, I would ask, how many people here have ever bent your rules? You've probably bent your rules for some parent at some time. And fine, you're happy even though the parent's not exactly following all your rules. And you're in the caring profession, you let things go. Life is too short to worry about every little thing. You let the parent do what they want sometimes, and you're happy. And that's fine. Sometimes you may not be happy. And if you're not happy, you got to do something about it. You got to enforce a consequence. Now, the consequence in my example was termination if they call more than twice. The other consequence, as I mentioned earlier, was money. So if money was important to you, you might have said, well, if I'm willing to put up with 10 calls, how much money do I need to get for me to be happy about this? And maybe more money would make you happy. And if so, how much? Well, gee, if I got $30 more a week, I could put up with 10 calls a day. All right, fine. So you're happy now, parent, you got to pay me the 30 bucks. Oh, no, I don't want to pay that. Well, then you can only call me twice a week. Well, and if you call me more than twice a week, now I'm terminating you. Well, maybe I'll pay you the 30 bucks. So it's money or time. It's money or your time, meaning termination if they're not going to follow your rules. Now, even though I bring up the example of money, getting paid more to put up with a parent's violation of your rules, most providers don't do that. Most providers don't want to deal with parents and money like that. And they would just say, if parents are not following the rules, I'm going to end the agreement. Okay, fine. Choice number 3 is still a reasonable choice. If you're not happy and you're not dealing with the stress of confronting the parent and enforcing your rule, then I think you should go out of business. What if the parent was paying you $80,000 a year? Let's just pretend. The parent is paying you $80,000 a year. So, rather than listening to me in this long webinar, what do I have to tell you? Get the parent to sign the contract. Then do whatever they want. They show up early in the morning, fine. They're late picking up the child, fine. They don't bring the extra change of clothes, you buy the clothes. $80,000 a year per child. Let's say you got 5 kids, that's $400,000. Think of how much grief you would be willing to put up with from a parent if you got $400,000 a year. But you're not earning anywhere near $400,000 to put up with much of any grief. So parents aren't looking to leave your program. They're in your program because they want to be there, because they like being there, because they think their child is doing well in your program. So again, don't hesitate to tell the parent this is what you need to do. And if you can't do it, here's the consequence. Oftentimes, providers aren't thinking clearly about what they want. You got to start with that. What do you want? 10 calls a day is too much. Well, what do you want? Give the solution. What is it that will make you happy? And then move forward with that. No matter which of these you pick, you're either happy, you've gotten rid of the person who's making you unhappy, or you're moving on to do something else that will make you more happy. So, already talked about this screen. Either one of these choices are acceptable. It's up to you to take action. It's on you. Parents aren't waiting for you to tell them what to do. Ending the contract. Well, if you decide you want to end the contract, why might you end the contract? Well, for disruptive behavior by the parent of the child, violation of the contract, high anxiety, you're getting a headache every time you see the parent walk up your door in the morning, whatever reason. So you could just wake up one morning and say, I need one fewer child. Who's it going to be? And you close your eyes and you go, oh, you're gone. But before you terminate anybody, you should ask yourself the question, is there anything the parent could do that would change your mind? And if so, tell the parent. Give the parent the chance to make things right. Parent, okay, look, you need to do this. If you can't do this, I'm sorry, I can't provide care. Oh, man, you haven't told me this before. This is a surprise to me. You would say, parent, well, that may be the case, but I've decided this is what needs to happen now. Even though I haven't enforced this rule in the past, or even though I haven't perhaps talked to you before about this is what I need you to do. And let's work on this, but in the end, I need you to do this, and if you can't do this, I'm not going to be able to continue to provide care. Let the parent know. How are you going to end the agreement? Parent must give a 2-week written notice. This is common language in contracts. Payment is due for this notice period, even if the child is not brought to care. Now, if you're doing my 2 rules about getting paid in advance, you don't have to worry about this. Parent must give a 2-week written notice, period. I strongly recommend that everybody put in their contract, provider may terminate at will. Do not require yourself to give a 2-week notice. Why? Provider calls me up and says, I just finished having a violent argument with a parent. We were yelling at each other outside. And at one point, the parent said to me, if you don't back off, I'm going to call child protection and immediately complain that you abused my child. And the provider said to the parent, that's outrageous. I cannot stand that. You're immediately terminated. Leave, never come back. Then she calls me up on the phone and says, Tom, my contract says I have to give this parent a 2-week notice. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect the children in your care. If the parent's threatening you, if there's a child's at risk, child's running around beating up other kids, the just a danger, just a serious problem, you need to immediately end. Maybe you become seriously ill and you need to shut down right away. You need to have that opportunity and not put yourself in a bind. Now, may terminate. So you can always give notice if you want. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that with this kind of language in your contract. What should you say to the parent in writing? The last day of care will be, period. Now, if you already have been paid in advance, that's it. Your last day of care will be, period. This day, thank you for the opportunity to care for your child. Sincerely yours. Otherwise, if you haven't been paid in advance, under our agreement, you are required to pay for my services until then, whether your child attends my program or not. Don't explain your reasons for terminating. You've already talked to the parent about this, and you don't want to give reasons now for the same reason that we talked about why you don't want to give an explanation if you're going to refuse to provide care. The parent's not going to agree. I got a call from a provider who said, I'm going to terminate this mother this afternoon. I've written her a letter that I want to give to her. Can I read it to you? Sure. So it's a 3-page, single-space type letter giving all the different circumstances in which a parent did the wrong thing and the provider was upset about. No, I said to the provider, never show that to the parent. Just tell them the last day of care is whenever. Because they're going to argue with you. They're not going to agree. They're going to be upset. They're going to tell other people that you treated her badly, you insulted her. She may make complaints. She may think that you're illegally discriminating. So, no. If the parent has left owing you money, what are you going to do? Go to a collection agency? Well, they're going to take a percentage of the fee. They'll call the parent. They'll knock on the parent's door. They'll write parents letters. Maybe they'll collect, maybe not. You can find a collection agency just by Googling collection agency in the name of your town. Or you can go to court, small claims court. Could take months and months and months before you can get there. No guarantee of winning. Even though your contract is clear that parent must pay, there's no guarantee here. And unfortunately, I have seen cases where judges just didn't enforce a contract, even though it was clear. And to avoid all this, you want to do my 2 rules. If you go to court, pay a filing fee, you add that on to what they owe you. If you win, the parent still has some time to pay you, and if they don't, now you have to go back, and it can get involved. It's just complicated. We want to try to avoid both options. If you are going to go to court, you first send them a letter, a demand letter that says, this is when I provided care, this is how much you owe me, here's a copy of the contract that says so, you got to pay me by this deadline. If you don't, I'm going to take you to court. It's a threat. You don't have to take them to court. Sometimes parents will pay when they get this kind of letter. That's what I want to say. You're the boss. You took the initiative to start your own business. Great. You should be commended for that. You set your own rules. Here's my contract. Here's my policies. This is how I think it works best for me. How you run your business can be very different than how the next provider runs her business. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. If you set your own rules and you cannot find any parent who wants to come to your program, or all the parents have left and nobody wants to come back, well, maybe it's time to think about doing something else, or perhaps have different rules if you want to try to attract more parents. But it's on you. It's on you. Use a written contract, use written policies, and enforce them. Enforce them with consequences. Here's my contact information. Again, I'm happy to try to answer questions. I don't charge anything for answering questions. I'm happy to do so. My website is full of resources particularly on contracts and policies. Facebook, again, is a place to ask me questions. My book contains a sample one-page contract, a sample two-page contract, and there's a link in the book to a listing of a whole lot of series of examples of contract and policy terms that you can just cut and paste in a Word document to create your own. In other words, there might be 4 or 5 different examples of a discipline policy or a vacation contract rule or privacy policies, and you say, oh, I like this one, I like number 3 of that one, and you just pull it together so you can create your own. And my book in the back shows an example of a longer contract and longer policies. So I hope those resources can help. I appreciate your time listening to me. Thank you for what you do. You work very, very hard. I hope this makes your work a little easier. Good luck.